Let's bring in Jamil Jaffer. He is the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. So, Jamil, first of all, what do you make of the timing of these Red Sea attacks, and how should the U.S. handle and stop them?
Well, Arthel, there's no doubt, as Lucas and Eric were just discussing, that this is a major challenge to international shipping, and that the U.S. has got to respond. We've seen U.S. ships there in the Red Sea shooting down these drones, shooting down these cruise missiles, but tankers have been attacked. At least one has been taken into port and captured. This is obviously a major threat. You see people diverting their resources now around that area down south past the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. That's going to be a huge disruption, and the U.S. has got to take action. And frankly, it can't just be action against the Houthi rebels themselves. It's got to be against their Iranian backers who are really creating this challenge in the Red Sea.
Yep, because I was going to say the Houthis are behind the attacks. Iran is behind the Houthis. So what do you do to stop Iran so you can stop the Houthis?
Well, Eric and Lucas were talking about this idea of reflagging tankers, as we did in the Persian Gulf. You might reflag some of the shipping. You might escort those ships and provide overwatch. But beyond that, you've got to really go after the rebels themselves, the Houthis there in Yemen. The Saudis have been fighting a long war with them. That's been a challenge. But, of course, then you have to go after the Iranian backers. And, President Trump went after Qasem Soleimani when Americans were killed in Iraq and Syria the last time. We've seen growing attacks in Iraq and Syria against American soldiers again. Almost 80 just in the last month and a half, 2 months alone. So you've seen attacks on Americans, on American ships in the Red Sea, commercial shipping. This is all fomented by Iran. Direct action against Iran is now what's necessary from the White House.
So are you saying that it's time for the U.S. to perhaps find another Iranian leader and assassinate that person?
Well, whether it's Iranian leadership or it's Iranian military vessels in the Persian Gulf or the Houthi vessels or the transit points, the place where Iran is shipping these capabilities to the Houthis aren't developing these drones on their own. They're not developing these cruise missiles on their own. Those are coming both with Iranian money and Iranian weaponry itself. That's where the choke point is, and that's where the U.S. needs to go after the supplies. And at the end of the day, we know who's behind this. It's the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and the Iran Revolutionary Guards Quds Force, which was previously led by Qasem Soleimani.
Yeah, but money doesn't stop them. Action stops them.
That's exactly right. And the challenge is that to date, the White House has been slow to act against the attacks on American soldiers in Iraq and Syria and against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. To be sure, the administration's done a good job shooting down these drones and stopping some of these attacks. Many have been successful. And at the end of the day, when Americans are getting injured and American ships are being threatened and commercial shipping is being halted, more direct action is what's critical.
Well, that's interesting you say that. Listen to Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen. He commented about this very subject on ABC this week. Let's listen.
I think that the administration has been smart in terms of how it's responded to those attacks. But clearly, the risk of an American being killed in the process is high. And that would obviously create a big response from the United States.
The risk of an American being killed in the process is high. How can you prevent that from happening?
Well, you can, Arthel, and the problem is we shouldn't have to wait till an American is killed for the administration to respond. Dozens of American soldiers have already been injured by Iranian attacks, Iranian-backed attacks in Iraq and Syria just in the last month and a half alone. Now we've seen U.S. commercial, foreign commercial shipping and U.S. naval vessels targeted by Houthi drones. That's enough. That should require a response, and an offensive military response is the only kind of response the Iranians are going to understand and respect. It's time for the administration to act. It's good to have a bunch of nations coming together to protect that shipping, but direct action against Iran is what's needed now.
So between the Hamas terror attack on Israel and now a war there between Israel and Hamas, Russia's war on Ukraine, the political divide in D.C. over aid, I keep hearing Eric and other guests bring up the 80s. This is not the 80s. This is a new set of circumstances. How do you handle this today?
Well, Arthel, that's exactly it. The world sees us divided. What you're seeing is a world on fire, but this is what happens when America isn't out there leading. It's what happens when our allies don't think we're going to be there for them and where adversaries aren't afraid of us. We need to support our allies in Ukraine, our friends in Ukraine, our allies in the Gulf, and we need to protect those nations, and that protects America. At the end of the day, when we're spending money to fight these fights, it's not because we're not defending America's interests. We are. It's better to fight the adversary overseas than to face them here. If we let them can continue these attacks, whether it's Russia in Ukraine or Iran all over the Gulf, we can expect those attacks to eventually hit us at home. That will cost us more in lives and treasure than it will now to take those capabilities out today. That's why these deals are so important, and why it's so important to back our allies and make sure our adversaries know that we will fight against them if necessary.
Bring the fight to them. Don't let them bring it to us.
Exactly.
Jamil, well, I'm happy to see you. This subject just gives me a headache. So I'll end on a good note and tell you Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and your family. How about that?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, Arthel, as well.
Thank you. Eric?